Hello and welcome. My name is Jake and I'm joined by Charlie as we discuss the world of football with a focus on data. This is Football with the Faff. Okay then, welcome. We're going to be doing our Premier League predictions today. So we've both worked tirelessly trying to work out just how this season will go, and I'm sure we'll get 100%.
Yeah, we usually do. We're usually bang on. Never any off. We always get the whole league, top to bottom.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you wanted to start off with who you have in 20th.
So I've gone with Southampton.
No way, so have I.
Well, there you go. So obviously I watch a fair bit of the Championship.
Yeah.
And I just think the style he has, Russell Martin, is very much we're going to play this way and no one's going to stop us, which is great if you have the players.
Yeah, exactly. I thought the same. They can play nice football and it can be exciting, but ultimately in the Premier League you often get, punished for that. I see them going straight back down.
It's given me the exact same vibes as Burnley had coming up, in that you really admire the way they play in the Championship. You might watch them and think, oh, I really like the way they play. But you just can't do that in the Premier League if you haven't got the players.
Yeah. So, well, okay, we're agreeing so far. So for 19th, I have Ipswich.
Oh, okay. See, I've gone Leicester. Why have you gone Ipswich?
Ipswich, I just feel like they won't have enough quality. Some of the signings they've been making aren't necessarily, they don't have much experience in the Prem. And I think sometimes that can be the difference, whether a side stays up or not. So I think although they'll do better than Southampton, I don't see them being able to do much more.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting ones with Ipswich is, again, they were known for a really nice kind of style of football, but they were adaptable. They could sit and defend for long periods if they needed to. And yeah, maybe man for man, they just can't get away with that. I mean, if you look at some of the players they've signed, Hutchinson from Chelsea had never played a Premier League game, I don't think. I think he played one for Arsenal or something. Jacob Greaves, Liam Delap, Murich, Connor Townsend, very much championship-y players.
Yeah.
I wonder if they do have anything else in the pipeline for the next few weeks in terms of experience. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's it as well. There's still, just under 4 weeks left of the transfer window. So, these teams could change quite a bit. But I think, as for right now, they've spent a fair bit, but I don't know if it would be enough to keep them up.
Yeah, I mean, you're dead right. I mean, they've spent a fair bit, but it's almost a situation of, I think Hutchinson they had to sign because of how good he was in the Championship.
Yeah.
I think that made sense, but the rest of it, I'm sort of wondering where the money's going, because I'm not really seeing enough. I mean, Jacob Greaves I really, really like, and maybe they are just prepping a team to go down and try and come back up again.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think they've spent a fair bit. I'm not sure I'm seeing enough improvement, if that makes sense. They are very much either players for the future or low-cost options that they could get in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But right, so where are we now? 18th. So I had Leicester in 19th, but let's skip on. Who have you got in 18th?
I have Forest, actually.
I have Forest as well. There we go.
Oh, my God, this is insane.
Happy days. So 2 from 3 at the moment. So
go on, give your verdict on Forest.
All right, I'll start with mine. So Forest, I think, were fortunate last year, to say the least. Although they had a big points deduction, I think getting rid of Steve Cooper obviously was quite unpopular with the fans, but maybe needed to happen. I don't know. But I just don't get a good feeling about Forest. They've brought in a load of different players over the last few years. They've got a manager who I'm sure you know firsthand how Nuno is I don't know, he's not really we're going to sort the back four out, and he's not really we're going to play some lovely football. He's kind of a little bit of both. And I think in a team like Wolves, where he had top quality players, it worked really well. I'm just not sure I see him succeeding at Forest.
Yeah, I mean, his time at Wolves was very special. Didn't they finish 7th in their first season in the Prem?
Yeah, I mean, they were brilliant.
Yeah, which was incredible. But I last season with Forest, I felt they shot themselves in the foot so many times, whether it was just their players making stupid mistakes, not concentrating, not focusing. They were always somewhat at a risk of going down. And, with the point deductions, who knows, maybe they'd get more next season as well. You never know. And I don't know, it really feels like they need to sort themselves out. They've brought in a new goalkeeper and a new centre-back who, maybe they'll sort things out. But I just don't see them being able to play well enough as a team in order to stay up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, which I think is a shame as well, because they've got some really exciting players mixed in with the other 50 million that they have.
Yeah.
But I mean, Hudson-Odoi, Elanga, Morgan Gibbs-White, I mean, Awoniyi, when he's fit, is brilliant to watch. I mean, who's the centre-back? Murillo, the young lad from Brazil. Every time I watch him, he seems to impress me. But I just feel everywhere else on the pitch, there's just an imbalance. They just never quite seem together.
Yeah, and I think as well, is it their chairman who's an absolute madman, coming down onto the pitch and scream? I think you're always going to struggle to have a stable environment when that's one of your leaders.
Yeah, I mean, the culture's set from the top down. He'll bring in a manager that agrees with him in that way. I'm sure that has a big part to play as well. And I mean, obviously the points deduction seriously didn't help last year. You wonder how kind of strong they're going to be by FFP. I mean, maybe this is all their deals to be done.
Yeah. I think you've seen across a lot of the clubs this summer that people are a bit scared to maybe buy as much as they would normally.
Oh yeah, there is a genuine fear now, and there was in January last year as well. That is definitely a theme. I totally agree with you.
And Forest have been quite crazy over the last couple of years, and I think that it might just come back to bite them. I don't see them able to really, in January go, oh, we need to play here. Oh wait, we can't get anyone decent. It could really punish them and could be the reason that they go down.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Right, so let's go with 17th. So in 17th, I've got Ipswich. I've been slightly more optimistic. I thought maybe Portman Road being a fortress could drag them through. Maybe that is me being a little bit optimistic, I'll give you that. But I also think with Forest and Leicester, could there be more points deductions to come next year? Could that play a part?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Leicester are guaranteed one coming up. I'm sure I read that.
Yeah, I don't know the size of it. I mean, it might just be a 4 or 5 points and they might be able to get through that. But funnily enough, I have got Leicester 17th. So
there we go. Well, let's have a little chat about Leicester then. So if we've swapped Ipswich and Leicester, haven't we? So we haven't talked about Leicester. Why don't you talk me through your thoughts on Leicester?
Okay, so now obviously I think this is the case for 5 teams in the Prem this season. They've got a new manager. And
it's huge. Yeah.
We don't know exactly how that will play out. I think that I don't expect them to do great like they have before, but I think that they have enough experience and quality to be able to get over the line. And I put them in 17th. I expect it to be very close. I wouldn't be surprised if they went back down, but I think they might just have enough, to just help themselves over the line. And again, you don't want it to be the case, but maybe points deductions could be the deciding factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I said with Forest, they could well get more. Who knows who else? But Yeah, I like some of their players, and I think that depending on how they start, if they start well under the new manager, it could create a real good positive atmosphere.
Yeah, I think, and that is the other thing. I think Steve Cooper is certainly someone that can do that. He really does get everyone going. I think, having seen Leicester live a couple of times last year, I was quite surprised by how kind of impatient they were with the way the new Chelsea manager, oh my lord, I forgot his name, Maresca was playing. It was a very, very slow kind of, quite tedious build-up, which I can totally accept. It's not something I'd love to watch, but it worked.
Yeah.
I just think with the squad they have coming up, I think it was a smart decision, even though Maresca wasn't in their hands, to go with someone like Steve Cooper, who, as you said, should really get them going a little bit like he did with Forest.
Yeah.
My worry is, like you said with FFP, if there's no one more to come in, I mean, their signings would be Fatawu, who was brilliant in the Championship, to be fair, really good signing. A Collie, who I have to say I haven't heard of, in centre-back.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in terms of centre-backs, they have Wout Faz, they have Connor Cody, Vestergaard. So I don't think they're too short at the back.
Yeah.
My worry is their midfield, because they're left with, in terms of central midfielders, Ndidi, Winks and Chowdhury, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they've signed a young lad from Chelsea who, I don't know, may or may not play. I think that was one of the many FFP deals, if you want to call it that. And I think Samare comes back on loan, but comes back from his loan, but I'm not sure what the plan is there. If there is no more money to spend, I just think they're going to be so shortchanged in central midfield.
Yeah, well, I saw as well that they signed Deckard over Reed on a free.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that could be a decent one, but it screams we haven't got a load of money and we're trying to get something together.
Yeah. I think they sold Dewsbury Hall for 30 mil, so I don't know if that balances them out enough. I don't know how bad they were before the transfer window in terms of FFP, but yeah, it is a bit of a worry, I think, when you can't, when you get promoted but then you just can't bring anyone in. But I think they've got some good experience, and as you said, Fatawu was really good. He was a joy to watch last season, and if he can continue that form in the Prem, it'll probably dip a bit, but if he can keep being a sort of star player, then I think that they will have enough to stay up.
Yeah, and to be honest, I hope they do. I do like Leicester as a club, as a city. I think it's full of good people. So I do hope they stay up, but I've just got a horrible, horrible feeling it's going to be quite a large points deduction. They're not going to be able to sign anyone. They might even have to sell still again. And I've got a feeling it's not going to go too well this year.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to say who you've got 16th?
Yeah, I was going to say, should we do it in 16th, 15th and 14th? Should we do that in a 3?
Yeah, sure.
Because we've done the bottom 3 and then the team that's going to survive. So I've gone with Brighton, Brentford and Fulham. Who have you gone with?
Okay, so from 16th, I've got Brentford, Fulham and Everton.
Okay, so let's start with the 2 we have in common. Let's go with Brentford and Fulham. So, in terms of Fulham, I've been quite impressed with Fulham over the last few years, especially with Marco Silva. But I'm just getting the feeling that's dying out. I mean, they're going to lose Palhinha. They lost, obviously, Mitrovic, whether that was a season or 2 seasons ago. And now the players they're bringing in, Emil Smith-Rowe, I mean, that could be a brilliant move. But it still leaves them, again, Pereira, Smith-Rowe, Iwobi, Wilson. They've got some nice players going forward, but can you really replace Palhinha? I don't think so. I think they've got to go with Palhinha. 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 I think
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really tough one.
Yeah. Well, in our fantasy football episode, I did state that I thought Muniz would get 12 goals this season, which, maybe you'd be a bit surprised to see a team in 15th. But I think the start of the season, they've got a very good run. If they can get 3 out of 5 wins from that, I think, because I think they play all the teams that have come up in their first 5 games.
Well, that should be telling, shouldn't it? That should really set the tone for the season. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah. But again, losing Paulinho, that could be catastrophic. But I do feel they've still got enough talent there. And again, they brought in Smith Rowe, who I think was it like 34 million they paid for him.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 31.8 million euros.
Yeah.
But again, that may very well not include the add-ons. But I mean, put it this way: either way, it was a sizable chunk of money.
Oh yeah, I went and looked a little more into it, and I was like, oh, how much was that? Like 10, 15? Because I don't really remember him playing for Arsenal that much recently, and yeah, I was like, oh, in the 30s. So, clearly they can spend a bit, or they have been able to spend a bit, and I mean, you'd have thought they'd prioritise, replacing that Paulinho hole that they've got, because I think even if you just get one player, that might not be enough to replace him.
Yeah, I mean, and they may very well still do. The other thing I hadn't really considered is I wonder how that could affect the rest of the team. It might mean Pereira drops deeper. It might mean Smith Rowe plays kind of in a 2 and he's kind of the roaming centre mid. I'm not sure. I mean, they've got Lukic, who they signed start of last season, I believe, who obviously understandably didn't play a lot because Paulinho was there. I'm imagining he was signed to replace him that summer with the intention that Paulinho was going to go to Bayern. So maybe it's time for Lukic to step up. I just don't know. But I think that's a really, really big gap to fill. And I'm not sure if they've filled it quite yet.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. So moving on to Brentford now, another one we had in common for this little section. Is Tony staying or is he going?
I honestly think he's going to stay. I know the price keeps getting dropped every week and it's now 40 million when it was 80 and whatever, but out of the teams that could pay the money, because let's assume he's going to stay in England, because I don't see him going. No. Out of the teams that could pay the money that need a centre-forward, City won't sign a centre-forward. Even with Alvarez leaving, I don't see City signing a centre-forward. Liverpool won't be signing a centre-forward, I can't imagine, because you've got 4 or 5 players that can all play up there, plus Nunez. Man United won't sign a centre-forward because they've just signed one and have Rasmus Højlund. So the only kind of gap I can see, very, very possibly Arsenal. I mean, outside chance, but I don't think they will.
Yeah.
And Spurs, and I don't think he'd be too high up on Spurs' kind of wish list.
I don't think so either, and there's a reason for that. So I think it was a week or 2 ago, it was stated that Spurs have 3 signings ready to go, but they're waiting for the selling clubs to get their replacements ready. And something that Brentford did is they bought a £30 million striker, I think, was it the start of July or something?
Yeah, who is now injured until the end of the year, but yeah.
But that would sort of make me think, oh, maybe we're not going for Tony then. Maybe now they need to sign someone else. But yeah, I don't see Tony coming to Spurs. And as you said with Arsenal, I think Havertz did quite well up front.
And they've still got Jesus that they don't look like they're going to shift. So
yeah,
I think it'll be fine with Arsenal.
I just don't know. I thought that before maybe West Ham could pick him up because they've been splashing the cash a little. But obviously they've now got Fulkrug. So that won't happen anymore.
Dead in the water, yeah.
So he's really running out of options.
I mean, the only other outside thing I could think of is it looks like Callum Wilson might be leaving Newcastle. But again, is he going to want to go and be back up to Alexander Isak? I just don't see that.
I think he's got the quality and also the ego to be a number one striker. You know, the only problem is how many teams are looking for that and how many teams are looking for him.
Yeah, so I think his smart move is to wait it out another year, go on a free, and hopefully by that point there'll be a club in the Premier League that has that gap for him.
Well, yeah, and him moving on a free, he might get some nice wages as well. So
yeah, and the other option is it will make it easier for him to move abroad if he wants to do that for a couple of years. If he's going on a free, because he could agree a short-term deal or something.
Yeah, and you got to think as well. He's what, 27, 28 now.
Yeah, he's 28. Yeah,
he's got sort of one more big transfer or one more big contract in him. I don't see how he can. I think he'll wait for this, potential free transfer, but then that will be make or break for him. I think if he gets to a big club or a decent club, then he'll be happy with that. But if he doesn't, I think he might be a bit concerned.
Yeah, I totally agree. And honestly, I just think it looks more and more likely he'll do one more year at Brentford. Everyone will leave happy and job done.
Yeah.
But yeah. Right, so I had Brighton and you had Everton in this little section of 3.
Yeah.
So I'm going to briefly explain my Brighton move. And then if you briefly explain Everton, I think that's the best way to go. So I know Brighton have signed quite a few players. And they've signed them for some decent money, to be fair. But I just think losing De Zerbi, a team that plays such a distinctive way, I think it's a big ask for a young manager to come into the Premier League and get going straight away. I mean, Brighton's expectations and their quality are very different things. I mean, Brighton knocking on the door of Europe is nothing short of a miracle with the money they've had. They've just signed so intelligently and had brilliant managers with Graham Potter and De Zerbi who have just suited Brighton to a T.
Yeah.
It's a big ask for them to get this right again without Dan Ashworth and some of their staff that have left for Chelsea.
Yeah, I feel with Brighton, they certainly didn't feel as strong last season as they had in the past, and I think maybe them getting battered in Europe didn't help. It might have hindered their confidence a bit. I mean, I don't really know much at all about their new manager other than he's young.
I know very little bit about him from when he was at St Pauli, but put it this way, wouldn't describe it as Brighton football, the way he played. They were positive, fast on the attack, but I guess it's tough because he had one of the lower ends of the teams in the Bundesliga squad-wise.
Yeah.
But I didn't automatically think, oh yeah, he'd really suit Brighton.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just because, and I know that the sort of hierarchy has changed a bit and the background stuff, but they just always seem to pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think they'll do great this season, but with the signings they make, I don't know most of them, and yet in a year or two, everyone knows them. It's incredible.
I totally agree. The one thing I would say that I think will be a massive loss is losing Pascal Gross. I think he's been brilliant for him. I think he's been one of the unsung heroes of the Premier League, let alone Brighton. I think he's been fantastic. And I think losing him, even though he fills in at right back sometimes and he moves around the pitch, I just think losing him is such a big deal. I don't quite know what you do.
Yeah, I remember seeing their statement when he left saying that they did everything they could to try and convince him to stay because he's just such a huge part of the team. And, I think that Dortmund's his boyhood club and stuff, so it's very hard to get someone to stay then.
I mean, he's earned the move, yeah.
Oh,
no doubt
absolutely.
at all. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, it could be a bit like Fulham in a sense. You lose that key figure in midfield, and how do you replace that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so I've got Everton in 13th, and you had them in this little section of 3.
Yeah,
So
I had them in 14th.
why don't you... 14th, okay. So only one place difference. Why don't you talk me through a little bit as to why you think Everton's going to be grouped in that kind of comfortably staying up, but not really anywhere near Europe group?
I think the biggest part is Dyche. You know, I think
As a good thing or a bad thing?
As a good thing, sort of. I feel like he's, although the state of them selling the club is all over the shop.
I mean that is something you can't
Yeah.
ignore. To be fair, I kind of did this prediction assuming all went well and they get sold, and not that they can spend a fortune, but they're in an okay position.
Yeah, but I think that Dyche has able to bring somewhat stability to the team, and I think that the fans get behind him. I think the players are behind him. You see how they graft, and you know there's a reason why Pickford's one of the best sort of FPL assets. They work as a unit, and I think when you don't have money galore, it's important that with the players you do have, they stick together, they work for each other, they die for each other, because otherwise you will go down. And I think that they are slowly going to pull themselves up the league. I mean, even last season, without their points deduction, they would have been 3-4 places higher. They did really well. It was just unfortunate that things out of the players' hands and out of the managers, the fans' hands, that played a big part, unfortunately.
I've been a little bit more optimistic, and I'll tell you why. I think keeping hold of Jared Branthwaite, obviously Jordan Pickford never really looked like it was going to go, but keeping him was a big thing. This new centre-back, Jake O'Brien, by all accounts is a really decent one, and that leaves them Branthwaite, Tarkowski, O'Brien and someone else to come in as centre-back. That's a decent set of centre-halves. I know they've lost Onana, which is obviously a big deal, but I think this is the key. I think Jesper Lindstrom, who I loved at Eintracht Frankfurt, I thought he was brilliant, and Iliman Ndiaye, who I watched a lot in the Championship, is a bit of a gamble, but those two, I think, have been brought in to solve this goal problem. Calvert-Lewin couldn't score, Beto couldn't score, it was all with set pieces. If Everton now have a way to score with the ball on the floor, I think that adds a massive extra dimension to them that a Dyche team just hasn't had in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think so too. And last season, I think they had the 4th best defence in the league. So if they can get the goal scorers scoring goals, funnily enough, I think that they can climb up even further. And I feel like it's been a problem for a while though with Everton having that proper reliable striker. Obviously they had Richarlison who did well for them, but I think Calvert-Lewin can be good, but he's never been fit enough to stay consistently in the team to really be able to string those performances together.
Yeah, and I mean, fitness has been a huge thing for him. Is it his year to have a fully fit year and a really decent run at the number 9 position? I don't know. But either way, I think this year they're a little bit more secure with Ndiaye. And obviously, I really like Beto, but he just couldn't seem to score. I get the feeling Everton are going to be all right this year. And they're not just going to be all right, they're going to push up even more.
Yeah, and one final thing on them is that they're still trying to work out a contract for Dele Alli, and he's been injured for pretty much 2 years now, but they still have some faith in him, and I certainly hope as a Spurs fan that he could shine there and show what he's capable of again. Because
it'd be a brilliant story, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he is talented, he is driven, he's had his troubles, but I think everyone sort of supporting him, hopefully that can drive him on. And I think it was within the last week he put a video on social media, it was almost like a trailer for this season, just trying to say that he's back and he's ready. So yeah, I'd like for him to do well there.
Yeah, I think we all wish him well, and we all hope he really kicks on, whether that's at Everton or not. We all really hope he finds his form again, because I mean he's not even 30 yet, is he, Dele Alli? But yeah, right. So if we go with, we've done 16th, 15th, 14th. If we do the next three as a band of three again, 13th, 12th, and 11th, and then we'll go one by one for the top half.
Yep, that's perfect.
So my 13th was Everton,
Okay.
and then I've gone Bournemouth and Wolves. Who have you got?
We've actually got such a similar team. So in 13th, I've got Bournemouth. In 12th, I've got Wolves. And then in 11th, I've got Palace.
All right, so let's go through. Why don't you start with Palace, and then we'll go through Bournemouth and Wolves together.
Now, I will say that initially I had Palace in 9th. But I sort of feel they've lost Elise, who was huge for them last season. And as well, Mateta's been at the Olympics. So I don't know if he'll have a delayed start to the Prem.
I'm sure he will.
Or how delayed that will be. So I just sort of felt losing two of your biggest attacking assets, I'm sure they will still do well, but I think they might just lose a few more points than they would otherwise at the start of the season. As I'm sure will still shine. And, again, I like their defence. I liked... is it Munoz? Their right back?
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked him. And yeah, I think they've got a good team. I saw as well that Adam Wharton's valued at 100 million now, which everyone seems to be these days. But yeah, I think they are building something nice. It's just maybe losing Elise will take a bit of a hit.
Yeah, and I mean, last few days there's been rumours that Newcastle are in for Mark Gahey. I mean, that could be a big issue as well. But I just think they have such a top manager. I just get the feeling they're going to push on Palace. And I think the signings they've got, I mean, Riyad from Real Betis I know very little about. But obviously Ismaila Sarr, we all know, is very talented. And Kamada, Oliver Glasner worked with at Frankfurt. And again, someone that really, really impressed me when I went to Frankfurt to watch. So I think he's a top manager, and I think he'll bring in decent players around him. It's not kind of the Roy Hodgson kind of label that they all got given. And Vieira, although I thought he did quite a good job at Palace, didn't come in as a really well thought of manager. He came in off kind of some poor spells in America. I think with a top manager there, I think Palace can push on and do slightly better this year than where you've got them, in my opinion.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. It's just almost the uncertainty of when you lose a star player.
Yeah. Right, so what have you got for Bournemouth?
So, Bournemouth. Now, obviously, Solanke's another one that's been linked with potential moves away. I know that he's fairly high up on Spurs' list, so I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. It's just that he's got quite a large price tag as well. So I've got them in 13th, and I think they'll have a similar season to last season. They've got they've purchased Sinistera and Unal, who I think will really just shine for them. I don't expect them to be racking up the goals, but I think when Bournemouth got forward last season, they were a threat. And someone that I liked a lot, who I felt sort of went under the radar, was Semenyo.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember when we played them away, and I mean, every time he got the ball, it was like, please, someone tackle him. Someone just crowd him out. Just because he was shooting from all over the place, and he was hitting the post, he was hitting the bar. Like he's a threat. And obviously you've got Solanke as well, who had an absolutely outrageous season.
Yeah. And I mean, Bournemouth's another one where it looks like they've got a really top manager in there. So I'm sure that'll propel them up. But yeah, I have to say, I look through Bournemouth's squad and I am impressed. Like, man for man, They look like they have decent cover all over the pitch. They've got some quality players in good positions. They're not thin. Like there's enough kind of depth to it. I'm with you. I think Bournemouth are going to have a really good year and finish above lots of clubs that you'd say traditionally are bigger than them and probably historically have had more money to spend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you. I think Bournemouth are going to do well. And Wolves. Wolves may always seem a bit of a kind of question mark recently with obviously the money sort of drying up a little bit. But I mean, what a job Gary O'Neill has done.
Yeah. Yeah, he's done really well. I think that Wolves' biggest problem, which has been the problem for a while, is that they just need a consistent goal scorer up front, someone you can rely on. Since Jimenez got that awful injury, they've just not had it. And it's a real shame, especially to lose someone that way. But I think that they've got a good side. They can play some nice football. One thing I'd look at is losing Max Kilman to West Ham. Although I believe they got 40 mil for him.
Yeah,
So there's potential to invest, but yeah, I think they'll do okay. Bit better than last season, but not quite ready for the top half yet.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. I pretty much echo everything you've said. It will be interesting, as you said, with the goal scorers. They've brought in Jorgen Strand Larsen from Celta Vigo, who I have to admit I'd never heard of. But again, every time Wolves sign a centre forward, you just think, oh, could this be finally the one that replaces Jimenez and lets him kick on?
Yeah.
I mean, Hwang Hee-chan did a brilliant job up there last year, but I think it's quite clear they'd rather play him out wide.
Yeah.
Cunha's a similar one, but I think they'd rather play him number 10. So a proper number 9 would obviously really, really benefit Wolves because they haven't had one, as you said, since Jimenez, really.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think they're on a good path. It's just almost finding that needle in the haystack to really elevate them to the next step, I think.
Yeah, and obviously if they can hold on to Pedro Neto as well, that'd be a big deal for them. I'm with you. I don't quite see them breaking into the chase for Europe, but I think 11th is a nice stage.
Yeah, and I had them 12th, so quite similar, really.
Right, so just to push up to 10th, I've got Palace. So we've already been through Palace, and I think we've both argued there's a decent chance they could do even better. Yeah. But I think somewhere around mid-table is a decent one. Who have you gone for in 10th?
So in 10th, this one I don't fully believe in, but I've gone for Brighton.
So we've got a big. So I had Brighton in 16th. You've got them in 10th. So why are you so optimistic with Brighton this year?
Well, as I said earlier, it just feels like they always manage to surprise people, and they always manage to find these great players that push on. I mean, I remember when Graham Potter left, and people were like, "Oh, are things going to slow down for them?" And then they seem to go even further with De Zerbi. I
was one of those people as well, I have to say, I didn't see him propping back up anywhere near the extent they had with Potter, and De Zerbi did even better.
Yeah, so I put them in 10th because I feel like they do have good players still. Obviously, they've lost Pascal Gross now, which could have a big effect. But I just see them being able to still, on their day, tear teams apart like they have before, and I could see them maybe finishing 13th, but I don't think they'd be too much further down.
Yeah, and I mean, it will be interesting with a new young manager. I have to say again, I've been quite pessimistic, but again, could it be the year Evan Ferguson blows up? Who knows? I mean, how much of a difference could that make? Matoma spent most of last season out injured. How much of a benefit could that be? Yeah,
exactly. So I'm probably quite optimistic for Brighton, but I'm also very well prepared for them to be like 4 or 5 places lower, maybe, if it really does go badly.
All right. So in 9th, I have gone with Newcastle. Who have you got in 9th?
I've gone with West Ham.
Okay, so I've got West Ham in 8th.
Okay.
And I've got Newcastle in 9th. So let's go with West Ham. So transfer market seems to have blown up for them a little bit in the last few days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what are you thinking in terms of these signings? Let me just read them out and tell me your thoughts. Kilman, Somerville, Fulkrug, and a young winger from Brazil that looks like he's not really going to bang on the door to start.
Yeah. So I'll start with Kilman. I think he's a really good acquisition. 40 mil.
A lot of money.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe a bit more than I'd want to pay for him. But I think he could be solid for them. I think they've needed another centre-back. They haven't been great defensively. And obviously they're another one who has a new manager in Lopetegui now. I wasn't too impressed with his time at Wolves, but he, obviously he has been a good manager. And maybe
I have to say, I'm just butting in on what you said as well.
Yeah.
I don't think that has thrilled too many of the fans, Lopetegui. I think they were expecting something a little bit more either bigger or progressive, because we don't really know Lopetegui as a Guardiola-style kind of progressive manager, and he's not really a big enough, exciting enough name. It just seemed to underwhelm a lot of West Ham fans, I think. Yeah.
But I think if they can sort their defence out, because I think they conceded on average 1.95 goals a game. So, if you want to be in the top half, you've got to be trying to get that down, especially if you're not going to play the fanciest football. So I think he's a good start. And then Fulkrug up front, I think, could be a great signing. Watching him for Dortmund, I loved his physical presence. You always seem to make defenders feel uncomfortable, and I feel like he could be a solid, West Ham player, if you get what I mean.
I have to be honest with Fulkrug, so obviously I watch a lot of German football. He is probably one of my favourite players to watch, but the most untidy centre-forward I've ever seen. I think that is a ridiculous amount of money for a player of his quality, and I think he'll be on probably a decent wage, but I just don't understand, because you'll need to replace him in a year, and if you're going to play kind of a Spanish way, if you want to put it, I just don't think he can be your centre forward. So I have to say that one has baffled me a little bit. Like John Duran or something, that made sense.
Yeah.
Quick centre forward, played in kind of a team with a Spanish manager, progressive, looked decent on the ball, but kind of intelligent enough off it. But Fulkrug just doesn't tick any boxes I was expecting for Lopetegui. If he'd have signed under Moyes, I think I'd have been saying that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think that may be where my positivity for the signing comes from, because we haven't seen Lopetegui under, in control of West Ham. Maybe I'm still expecting it similar to Moyes, but I think he could still. I think he could still make a difference for them. I don't expect him to be their star player though.
No, neither do I. I'm fully with you there.
Yeah.
Right, so let's go with Newcastle. So Newcastle have had a kind of decent enough window, but again, looked a lot of FFP signings. I think their big thing is keeping hold of Bruno Guimaraes and Alexander Isak, who look like they're both going to stay. That's probably bigger than anyone else that could have come in. But there's a bit of a bad feeling around Newcastle. I know Amanda Staveley's left, and it looks like there's a bit of uncertainty going on. Eddie Howe got touted around for the England job. I wonder how that affects the dressing room, and I wonder how much they know, because it just seems a little bit unhappy at the moment at Newcastle.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think that, about a month ago, I was thinking, maybe Howe will take the England job. He'll see that as the next step in his career. But it seems like enough time has passed that that's not going to happen this year at the very least. One thing that I did think, though, that shouldn't they get Tonali back around now or in a month or so?
Yeah. Tonali will be up and running for the season.
So, as long as he behaves himself, he could be another. He could have another great impact for them, like he did at the start of last season, which is why I had them a bit higher. But yeah, I think it is difficult with Newcastle because they've got some good players sort of all over the pitch. There are a few that you go, they're a decent standard, but maybe pushing for Europe, they might let you down once or twice, maybe in the fullback areas. But I do see them building something, and I don't know the impact of Amanda Staveley leaving. I don't know how they're looking to move on from that and keep progressing, but I feel like they'll have enough plans in place to at least keep in and around those positions.
Yeah, you have to imagine so. And I mean, any team that has Bruno Guimaraes, Joelinton, Gordon, Barnes, Isak, Botman, I mean, Cher's a top player, but obviously aging a little bit, that's a decent enough 5 or 6 out of your 11, and that as long as they stay fit, I think it's hard to have too bad of a year.
Yeah, well, it's a good job Botman's out for half the season.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, right, so I had West Ham in 8th and Newcastle in 9th, so we didn't get to your 8th. So who have you got in 8th?
My 8th is Chelsea.
Oh, wow, okay.
Could surprise
so that works out quite well, because my 7th is Chelsea.
We're all quite similar, really.
Yeah, it's pretty close. So what are we thinking about Maresca's kind of new look Chelsea? Do we think it's going to be any different to Pochettino's?
I'm honestly baffled by Chelsea. Obviously I hope they crash and burn, but but they've got so many. I mean, they've got so many players, but they've got so many good players, and a lot of them you'd say, oh, if they go to the other clubs, even as squad players, they boost that squad. So the fact that Chelsea keep struggling so much, almost year after year at this point, it is concerning, because you just go, what's the fix to this? I think they're quite lucky in how big, Palmer's become, and he's carrying them essentially. Yeah. But you think if he didn't shine as bright as that, if he only got half the goals, where would they be? And then Maresca, I think it's a bit of an unknown, because he doesn't have a ton of experience. He's obviously not managed in the Prem. I know that he was Pep's mate, but it is a bit different taking the reins and being the first man. But yeah, I don't see them getting into the top 5. Maybe they could push a few higher positions, but I don't know. I just almost feels like you can't trust them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And to be fair, though, they have kind of tempered maybe not the spending, but the players they brought in this year. I mean, Dewsbury Hall, Jorgensen, the goalkeeper from Villarreal, Kellyman, who was an FFP signing, Vega, who, again, from Basel, not a lot of money, Caleb Wiley from Atalanta, there's a centre-forward from Barcelona, a youth lad, Tosin from Fulham. None of those scream, I've got a load of money and I'm going to spend it aimlessly, which is what it has been over the last few years. So maybe we are going to see a little bit of a change with Chelsea. What
I would say, though, is that they're still making a lot of signings. Like, you remember...
Exactly.
The squad couldn't even fit in the changing rooms before. So... That is one thing. It's okay, you've signed for them, but when will you actually get a chance to play? And I think potentially one of the biggest potential downfalls of them is that Thiago Silva's gone. I don't know. You can't replace that experience. And he was aging. Don't get me wrong, but he still had that quality that makes you go, yeah. He is one of the top players over the last, decade.
He certainly never looked his age, put it that way.
No. So I feel that they will be hurt in that respect. But again, they've still got quality players who could get them higher. It's just I don't see any stability at all.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I've got them 7th, so not far off at all. But yeah, I don't see it with Chelsea either. The one thing I would say again, like you said, is Palmer coming alive can make a big difference. But I mean, losing Gallagher, I mean, I don't understand that at all. I think Gallagher's been huge for them. I know they've spent a lot of money on Enzo and Caicedo, and obviously Lavia spent a lot of the season out injured, but Gallagher would have been one of the last players that I got rid of.
And I think the way they treated him to sort of force him out the door as well was a bit
terrible.
Disgraceful.
Yeah, it was terrible.
But yeah, so I'll move on to my 7th now, as you've got Chelsea in yours. I've gone for Tottenham.
Wow, that's very pessimistic of you.
Well, actually, I think you'll find I'm rather optimistic, because if we're going to be winning 3 trophies this season, we're going to take a hit in the league. No, but I think we're having a youthful renaissance in a way.
Well, you wouldn't want to be having an old one, would you?
Well, no, but I think we've got a lot of promising young players. Seeing Bergvall in pre-season and Gray, they've had so much composure and confidence on the ball. It's really a joy to see, especially from 18-year-olds. They've got so much left in their careers. And yeah, I feel like we're starting to build something. We're still trying to get rid of Emerson Royale, which is worrying. He just won't go. But
I know Jed Spence had quite a good pre-season.
Yeah,
do you see him maybe sitting on the bench for Pedro Porro?
Absolutely. I think he played left back as well.
Oh, wow.
For one of our games. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see if he's available for both flanks. But yeah, it's quite nice to just sort of see the togetherness in the squad. Everyone's starting to get on the same wavelength. Only problem is that we've been playing Kulusevski as a false 9, and it has not gone very well. I assume
that is not ideal at all.
No, Richarlison's still injured, which is why he hasn't been playing. And obviously you can't really start one of the youngsters up front in the Prem just yet. But I'm hoping that we'll make a new signing for a striker soon, because Richarlison had some good form about halfway through the season, but he does get injured a fair bit, and even when he does play, he's not the most consistent. So I think you do need another option.
No, I think you're totally right there. I think that makes sense. I have to admit, I thought you'd have Spurs a little bit higher, and I do. I just think the fact that team are going to have had a year together playing for Ange, I think it's a decent enough squad relative to everyone else. I'm just a little bit more optimistic than you with Spurs this year.
Well, I'm hoping that we'll go far in the Europa League as well, or one of the domestic competitions. So that'll be the reason why we dip a bit. Either way, if we go out immediately out of all of them, then I'd want probably 5th minimum.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to say, watching the Euros, I am really intrigued to see how Dragusin gets on next year. I know he might not start, but with so many competitions, he should get enough minutes.
Oh yeah, and as well with all the youth players that are potentially coming through, getting a chance in Europe or just any of the cup competitions, we could really see some shine. And I mean, I'm buzzing for players like Mikey Moore, who he's only 16, but he plays like he's 20. I'm not saying he's ready for Premier League football yet, but I think you'll certainly see him on the bench more and potentially coming on towards the end of games. But it's just nice to have that future and see it developing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right, so let's go to 6th. I think we might get more and more similar as this goes on, but Spurs. But who have you got in 6th?
I have Villa.
Right, perfect, because so do I. I knew we both would have Villa in 6th. So I think even juggling the Champions League football, I still just fancy Villa. I love Emery. I think they've got a decent squad. I know they're going to lose a couple of players. I mean, they lost Diaby to Saudi, which is a real shame as someone that really likes Diaby. But I mean, they've got Buendia coming back. Morgan Rogers set the world on fire at the end. I thought he had a really good end to last year. Philogene, I mean, that's brilliant. I thought he was brilliant at Hull. It's nice to see him back. Hope he gets some decent game time. I'm just excited, I have to say. Ian Matson, I mean, that's an exciting one for them. Yeah, I just always get a good feeling about Villa. And I mean, even Amadou Onana seems a really smart signing. Just it all seems very together in place. It sort of gives me the vibe Brighton had, but with a club that's kind of double the size and ready to kick on.
Yeah, I think that they'll still do well. Obviously, you've got the unpredictability of the new European setup, an extra 2 games in the group phase or the league phase, whatever you want to call it, which, potentially could mean their top players don't play as much in the Prem. It depends what they prioritise, I guess. And then, losing Diaby and Douglas Luiz, two big players for them. I think they'll still be okay, and I think that 6th will be a good finish for them, given the circumstances. And, potentially Watkins could have another great... I mean, if he matches the numbers from last season, wow.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I can't imagine he will, but...
No, but...
Could that be an issue? Do they need another centre-forward, do you think?
Well, they signed Archer, didn't they, from Sheffield United. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think he'll bring many goals, but...
I have to say, I thought Cameron Archer was on loan at Sheffield United, unless they sold him and bought him back. But I might be wrong.
They might have.
He was on loan at Preston, and then I've kind of lost track of Cameron Archer since then. But yeah,
well,
carry on.
Apparently they bought him for 14 mil, so...
I think they might have bought him back.
Right.
But they might have sold him and then bought him.
Yeah.
Either way, carry on.
I don't think he's ready to sort of, be someone that you go, oh, it's okay, we've got Archer up front, but maybe developing with Watkins, he could grow and become the player that he could potentially be. But I don't see him reaching Watkins levels from last season, and as you said, I'd be surprised too if Watkins hit that mark again. Maybe they needed a bit more in terms of attack after losing Diaby, but I still think they play progressively enough that they can, still catch teams out with their quality.
Yeah, and I mean, the other one I'm a little bit excited about is Ross Barkley. I mean, obviously he had a great year at Luton. There's no reason he can really set the world on fire at Villa. I know he's aging, but he could have a great year.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to sort of see him get a renaissance, because I think, he went to Nice and almost everyone forgets about him, and then he had a good season for Luton, and now he's back at one of the top clubs. So, yeah, I hope for him that he can perform well and, maybe become a staple for a year or two there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's go to 5th. So I've got Man United in 5th. Who have you got?
Man United.
There we go. I thought that'd be the case. Right, so obviously I'll take this. I have to say, not too optimistic. Ten Hag's future being sorted was giving him a year extension on the same terms with the same clauses. I mean, it doesn't really scream we're back in the manager. The signings, obviously, Xerxes seems quite exciting, I have to say, and Lenny Euro seems exciting as well, but it looks like Euro is going to be out for 3 months now. I mean, that's just typical. I think another centre-back probably, De Ligt, Masraoui he's being talked about. I'm just not sure there's enough there to really push us on yet. Yeah. I think jury's certainly still out as to how everything's going to go. I think revamping the coaching staff is exciting. Great to see Ruud van Nistelrooy back.
Yeah.
Brilliant, love Ruud. But yeah, I'm not enormously optimistic, I have to say. But I hope I'm wrong. And obviously the big thing is hopefully injuries can't be as bad as they have been. Just fingers crossed we can keep some players fit, and I mean that would do wonders for our season.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, losing Varane, obviously, you've had him a few years now.
It just is never fit. That's
Yeah.
the issue.
Yeah, and same with Martial, who also
Yeah.
finally parted with. I think that you've made some good signings. I was looking at your squad, and it is quite bare in terms of, you know, if your players do get injured, who are you turning to?
Absolutely.
But I think that if you can keep that starting 11 fit, then you've got a very good team. So over the course of a season, maybe it would weigh itself out. So I think that a fifth place finish would be quite good.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of players we know that hopefully can have a decent year, I think Mount obviously spent a lot of last season out injured. Hopefully there is a place for him. And although I'm not hugely supportive of it, I'd much rather have seen him go. Sancho coming back, is there a place for him in the team? Very possibly. But again, the one for me, the breakout star for the year that I'm predicting for Man United is Amad Diallo. I know he was really good at the end of last season, very highly rated by our fans. I think he's going to get a real run in the team this year, and I think he'll take it. I think he'll take it well.
Yeah. I think you can still be excited with what's to come for United, and you know, I mean, you were very inconsistent last season, but obviously injuries played a part, and I think just some players being off form at the wrong times as well. But yeah, I think fifth will be about right for you. So moving up to fourth, who have you got?
So I've got Spurs. So we've already gone through it. I'm a tiny bit more optimistic, but yeah, I am accepting of your shortcomings that you seem to say with your centre forward, and maybe you need a couple more in the door. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've gone with Spurs as fourth. Who have you got?
I've got Newcastle.
Wow, so that's that and Brighton are the only two with big differences.
Yeah.
So why are you so excited about Newcastle this year?
I've got to be honest, I did have them in eighth. And then I was like, I moved things around a little, and just they sort of ended up in fourth. But they've got some real good quality players, as I said before, and I think if Tonali is able to play as soon as possible, I think he'll aid them significantly. Isak is immense. You know, if you got to think Pope was injured for a fair amount of last season as well, so if they have him for the full season, that could change things. I just think that if they're in their groove and avoid too many injuries, because they were another one that were hit quite hard, that yeah, they could sneak into fourth. I don't anticipate them being juggernauts or anything, don't get me wrong, but I think they've got the capabilities of reaching it.
Yeah, no, mine was more on a feeling around the club, but I can't deny any of that at all. I think they've got some brilliant players. If it comes together, it comes together. I
feel like something with that, if they start getting a few results together, then, you know, the fans are all with them. They're very passionate, so if they see good things on the pitch, I'm sure that, you know, everyone will get behind them again.
Yeah. Right, so let's go top three. So I've gone with Liverpool in third. Who have you got in third?
I've gone with Liverpool in third.
Yeah, so no signings so far for Liverpool.
No.
New manager. I just they're too unpredictable, so maybe it was a bit of a coward move to kind of leave them in third, but I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Liverpool, they've got some very good players. They've got, you know, 6 forwards that I think any team would have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I can sort of understand in that department why they haven't gone out and bought one. Obviously, soon enough they'll need a Salah replacement.
Yeah.
But for now, he's still playing very well.
Gakpo had a good Euros. Could
Yeah.
it be
Yeah.
his time to start really impressing at Liverpool?
Yet when Jota's fit, he's firing.
And is it the year for Nunez? Is he finally gonna
Yeah.
really go crazy?
Yeah, if he's not punching fans in the stadium. But yeah, I think they've still got just a lot of quality, and although no signings, you might think, oh no, it's all going horribly wrong. But I mean, Spurs got to a Champions League final with no signings for a year. You know, anything can happen. And I just still think Liverpool are too good to really drop that much. Again, new manager. Maybe that means things can go a bit differently to how we expect, but I just see them as too much experience, too much quality. They know what they're doing. They're professionals,
And they'll still have the core of that team.
Exactly. If Trent had left, if Salah had left, then I'd go, oh, hang on, this Liverpool's crumbling here. But they've kept them for now at least. So I think this is a chance for them to stay in the top four, and I think third's probably about right for them.
No, totally agree. Right, second, I've gone with Arsenal.
Wow. Who would have thought it? So have I.
Yeah, I'm feeling very similar with Arsenal this year. I think they'll have a really good year. I think they'll kick on. I think they'll play some nice football. Could go far in all the domestic and continental competitions. But I just don't think anyone will ever be as good as Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. No matter what happens.
Yeah,
I just don't see it.
Yeah, they had the best defence in the league last season, conceding 0.76 goals per match, which is insane. And they've obviously added Calafiori to that for around 40 mil. I think that, they'll keep playing well. Questions about maybe fitness of Saka towards the end of the season. He was playing with an injury. Can you keep doing that with him? Is it going to cause some sort of permanent problem? That's the only thing I'd be concerned about.
Stop,
But maybe he'll have a delayed start into the Prem this season. It pains me to say, they've been very good, but I was never going to put them first.
They've been fantastic. Only interesting one is very, very quiet window so far for Arsenal. David Raya in permanently, which obviously was a given, and Calafiori. Like you said, I was thinking maybe they'd bring someone in to back up Saka on the right, like you said, so he can have more of a rest, because they clearly don't trust Reece Nelson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, maybe a centre forward, but if Jesus isn't going, is it a huge priority if you've got Havertz and Jesus that can play there, and Trossard?
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Jesus. His goal output is not one of a top club, I wouldn't say, but he's certainly a very technical player on the ball. So he's almost a good one to bring on late into the game if you just need to win free kicks, if you just need to play the ball around nicely. So should we move on to number one?
I think it's going to be a pretty short discussion, but I just don't see anyone getting near City. I mean, again, I hope Arsenal push them all the way. I hope it's an entertaining title race. But it just feels inevitable with City. Until Guardiola leaves, I think it always will.
Well, apparently this might be his last season.
Please, God, please. I mean, to try and make a real case for it being wrong. I mean, De Bruyne is obviously getting older and a lot less fit, but I mean, he missed a ton of last year and still ended up top of all the passing ranks and all of that. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, he got injured first game of the season, was out until January, was it? Or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. And I think he was in and out for a while as well.
So,
Edison looked like he was going... Doesn't look like he's going to go now.
Yeah, I think maybe next summer could be what we thought could happen to Liverpool this summer, in that the manager goes, and then all the players start going as well.
I
Don't-
hope so. I hope so.
Don't get me wrong, though. I'm sure they will have replacements instantly. But yeah, I think you look at how good Foden was last season. He may be another one that's sort of nurtured at the start just to make sure he doesn't get injured or he's not over fatigued. But
I mean, they could have anyone, and Foden and Haaland up top. I mean, just how do you get near that? Honestly, I find it really hard. I mean, Rodri, Foden, Haaland, you could play with just them three and you'd beat half the teams in the Premier League. Honestly, I don't have a case for really saying they're not going to win the league. I just hope Arsenal push them really hard and we end up with an interesting title race.
Yeah, I mean, I saw an insane stat that they averaged 691 passes per match with a 90% accuracy. It's just mental. But yeah, and then they also had a 40% shooting accuracy, which is insane too. Funnily enough, most teams had 37%. I don't know what's so special about that number, but up and down the league, it was pretty much around 37%. So,
and the worst bit was it looked like Haaland didn't get out of first gear.
Yeah, like I think after the previous season, a lot of people felt that he didn't have a great season last season, but he did. It was just he doesn't really need to try that hard.
Yeah. So honestly, I have no other case. I think City will win the league.
Yeah.
Right. So should we just go with repeat the bottom three and your top four?
Yep. So in my bottom three, I have Southampton 20th, Ipswich 19th, Forest 18th, and then my top four is Newcastle in 4th, Liverpool 3rd, Arsenal 2nd, and City winning it again.
Yeah, so mine is fairly similar. I've got Southampton bottom, Leicester and Forest to go down as well, and my top four is Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal and City.
Yeah, very, very, very similar predictions from us. Just a few slight differences that, I think we maybe expect, certainly mid-table and stuff. That's always very close.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that hunt for Europe could be close again if it goes down to 7th and 8th again.
Yeah. So, there have been our Premier League predictions. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. A like and a follow is greatly appreciated. And don't forget, you can rate if you're listening on Spotify. This has been Football with the Faff. Goodbye.